If you've been watching my lives recently, you'll know in the last few weeks I've had a reoccurrence of vertigo, which I haven't had for about 7 years now. And I'm going to say, when I had it the last time, I wasn't aware that I had lipedema. It was prior to that. Since I've gone on a deep dive into lipedema, since discovering I had it, I knew this time around, I tweaked to the fact that, this could be lipedema related and I need to find out more. And as I like to do, if I find out more for me, I find out more for you. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So the last time I had vertigo, it was extremely scary. I woke up one morning, I got up to go to the toilet and I just swayed all over the room trying to get there. The day before, I'd had a colonoscopy, like a checkup, because there's colon cancer in our family. So I thought it was something related to that. It was very scary. If you've never had it before, the first time is horrendously scary. And my husband took me to the hospital. And luckily for me, there was a doctor on call in the emergency room that actually knew what it was and diagnosed me with BPPV. So that's benign proximal positional vertigo, or those middle two could get the other way around. And he'd actually just been trained in it the day before. So that was quite fortuitous for me. And he showed me that I needed to do the Epley maneuver and how to go about that and to go to physios and that sort of thing. Gave me a quick rundown. I think I did that I think it took a month to 2 months for it to resolve itself. And then I never had it again. I did have it while I was on holidays, not long after that. And yeah, but that was about it. It just sort of disappeared on its own. Fast forward to December of last year. And I had, just before I went to surgery to have my lower body lift, I had one night where I got into bed, I rolled over onto my right side. Last time I had it, it was on my left side. And from a metaphysical perspective, the left side is emotions. The right side is your day-to-day structure of living. And I rolled over onto my right side and I got the sways. I was like, oh, I know what that is. And it scared the bejesus out of me. The next day I thought to myself, because I had already been thinking, I think I'm over-medicated on my thyroid medication. I had very distinct things that were happening for me that I know my body. And I was like, I think since we've been here, walking a lot more, I'm eating pork a lot more, which is high in vitamin B1, which can improve the thyroid pathway. There were certain things and I went, I'm over medicated. So after speaking to the doctor, I lowered that medication. And that was it. That was the only little moment of vertigo that I had. But then I'm going to say about 4 weeks ago, maybe not quite that long, it came back and it was like regular. It didn't go away. So I'm yet to have another thyroid test in a couple of weeks because I changed that dosage and you need to wait about 6 weeks for it to even out. So in a couple of weeks, I will have another test to see where I'm at on that dosage. So potentially I have to bring that down as well. But it also led me down the rabbit hole of why is this happening? And I found an Instagram post which was around vestibular headache, migraines. And I knew what they were, but I didn't really know what they were. And this happens in people who have had a lot of motion sickness as a child. It's not exclusively that, but the lady I was watching was explaining that this is quite common if you're prone to motion sickness, which I was very much as a kid. So I went down this rabbit hole and something popped up about histamines. And so now, knowing more than I did then about histamines and lipedema, I was like, right, let's follow this rabbit hole, which I did. And the first thing I did was look at what foods am I eating, because I've been incorporating more fruits and veg, which I had been pretty much carnivore back in Australia. So I was having, what I conceived to be healthy foods back into my diet. Just about every food item that I had reintroduced can cause histamine issues, and they were high in histamine. So if I was to follow a low histamine diet, it's not the foods that I've been eating. And we're talking about things like avocado, pawpaw. They're the two main things that I've been adding into my diet. They're like really high in histamine. So I was like, damn. So that's okay, follow the rabbit hole as I continue to do. So once I figured out that it was histamines, I had gone to the pharmacy to get some sort of medication for the vertigo because I have a lot going on and I couldn't be dizzy all day, every day. She offered me antihistamines as well as the vertigo medication. And I was like, why is she offering me this? So I said no to the antihistamines and I got the vertigo medication. But when I started researching and it was the histamines at play, I was like, oh, that's why she offered me an antihistamines. I had some here that I brought with me from Australia. The use by date was a year ago, which I didn't even realise. And so I thought, I'll take the Claritine. So they were Claritine, and I took one. The dizziness went away. So I did that for 3 or 4 days, and that kind of confirmed for me it's a histamine thing as to why I've got vertigo right now. So here's what I discovered in my little research deep dive. Histamines are not just about itchiness and flare-ups and sneezing and that kind of thing. Histamines also affect your blood vessels and blood sugar, both of which can lead to dizziness and vertigo. So lipedema is an inflammatory disease. I say this all the time, and it's always a reminder because that's got to be front and center for us, right? It's an inflammatory disease. So is thyroid disease. It both causes inflammation and it's made worse by inflammation. So it's this cycle, it's this spiral that we have to get past. The soldiers that are involved in this inflammation are called mast cells. Histamine's job in our body is to widen, so vasodilate our blood vessels to let these cells through. When we have too many histamines in our body, the blood vessels widen too much, and that can cause a sudden drop in blood pressure, which also causes vertigo and dizziness and lightheadedness and that kind of thing. Histamines also stimulate a release of insulin. So insulin is our fat storing hormone. None of us want insulin. Histamines release this in our body. So when you have a massive histamine release, your insulin spikes, your blood sugar tanks, and you feel dizzy, weak, and all the other things that we've just talked about. Here's the other thing that I discovered. Histamines contribute to making our vessels leaky. Our lymphatics are already leaky with lipedema. So this contributes to that process. So that was like, one of the things that we all we don't know what to do about it. And we don't know how to necessarily reverse it, but we don't want to contribute to it and make it worse. Histamines do that. So when our vessels are leaky, fluid can go through out of your circulatory system and into your tissues. And that happens in your inner ear as well, which can affect balance and vertigo, all the things, okay? I was just gobsmacked by all of this information and went, this makes so much sense for me right now. I don't know if it does for you, but for me, it was like, So enter MCAS and POTS, MCAS and POTS. So MCAS is mast cell activation syndrome, or in really simple terms, an overactive immune system. POTS is postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. But what happens there is the heart rate spikes when you're standing up. POTS can cause fainting because blood pools in your lower limbs, your lower legs, due to loose connective tissue. And histamines makes this worse by dilating the blood vessels. So where do antihistamines come into this, and why did I stop taking them? As much as they were working for me, I went back to the vertigo medication, which I needed to take 3 times a day instead of the 1 Claritine a day. But this is why. This is what I found out. So antihistamine stops the dilation of the blood vessels, which stabilizes the head and the gut. So you don't get that dizziness and things like that. They're great for short-term emergency fix, but for long-term use, they cause weight gain. What are we all avoiding with lipedema? Weight gain. How do they cause weight gain from a long-term perspective? This is really fascinating to me. and made sense. But what it does is it causes a paralysis of our lymphatic ducts in our gut because it stops you from reacting. It stops your gut from reacting to all the things that the immune system is overacting about. Long term, it causes it to get too solid and too paralyzed, and therefore it causes fat to back up in your abdomen. So long-term use doesn't just cause weight gain, it also contributes to a fatty liver and triglycerides. Now, triglycerides, if you've been watching me long enough and you've watched other people that talk about cholesterol and how it affects our body, it's the triglycerides that lays down the plaque in our body, not the LDL, the bad cholesterol. It's the triglycerides. So that's the one, that the marker that we have to pay attention to. So long-term use of antihistamines, increased weight gain, fatty liver, triglycerides, none of which we want, certainly none of which I want. So what's the long-term solution here? So the goal here is to stop the mast cell from exploding in the first place, rather than cleaning up the histamine mess afterwards, after the event. So what can we do? Vitamin C. Now, I don't know if you're aware, but I've been taking vitamin C on an empty stomach in effervescent form that goes into a glass of water every morning. Whether or not that has contributed to me not getting vertigo any worse, because it's been quite manageable, whereas last time I was laid out I could not function at all. So this time it was quite manageable, just not comfortable at all. So whether or not having that vitamin C drink every morning made a difference, but that is one of the best natural stabilizers in the body for mast cells. Quercetin and luteolin, they too are stabilizers of mast cells, and a lot of lipedema medication or suggested supplements involve quercetin. So that made sense for me to see that, and it made me think, okay, I need to get onto quercetin next. Another one is a product called, and I have to read this, Gastrochrome, which is made of sodium chromoglycate. I'm going to say that's supposed to say glycate. And studies have shown that it acts on the gut, and they've found that specifically in lipedema patients, this does not contribute to weight gain. I can't get that here, so whether or not you can get that where you are, then great, go for that, because they've done the studies with the lipedema women on that one. And the thing that I'm taking is called Mercilon, which is beta-histine, I think it is, and that does not cause weight gain and does not cause any problems long-term with taking it. In fact, it's recommended for people with Meniere's disease, so long-term dizziness, so it's safe to take months, years, whatever you need. So I have culled the claritine, I've culled the antihistamines, and I'm just going to stick to the Mercilon, which I can get at my local pharmacy here, and I will continue to take that if and when I need it. I have also worked on my sugars, because remember what I said earlier about it bringing out, dilating the blood vessels and having an insulin response. So part of what we have to do to manage this long term is to keep our blood sugar stable. So I've been a lot more specific the last 2 days on keeping my blood sugar stable and saying no to the treats or having something other than the treat. So far, like today, for example, I haven't taken anything today and I'm good. There's no sign of it. I was letting the sugar get out of control because I could manage it. And that's what happens when our weight doesn't change and our inflammation doesn't change. We tend not to do anything about the things that are problematic in our diet until there's a reason to. And I'm no different to any other human being out there. I'm only looking at changing my diet now and being a bit harder on myself because I don't want vertigo. It might be you want to be able to walk around the block, or you might want to be able to run around and do your day-to-day jobs without any pain. But for me, it took for the vertigo to come in to rein the sugar in a little bit more than what I have been. Big lesson, and we're going to forget this lesson time and time and time again. I'm going to go through this for the rest of my life. I will get comfortable, I will have more sugars, I will potentially have more grains, and I will get something that makes me go, oh, I don't like that. I need to reel it back in again. And that's what we do as humans. So don't be hard on yourself about that. That's just what we all do. From a dietary perspective, keto, low sugar, keeps the blood sugar stable, keeps the insulin low, so that if you do have any insulin spikes from any veggies that are high histamine or anything like that, then it's not on top of the sugar load as well. So histamine veggies on their own per se is probably fine for me. It's because I'm adding the sugars on top of it. You know, the sugar in the coffee that even though I only have one coffee most days, not every day, it's still got sugar in it. So without those things, I'm going to say my pawpaw and my avocado are likely fine. And in fact, I can attest to that because I had avocado for lunch today with eggs. So that's okay. We'll see how it pans out. But so far, I feel fine. Didn't make me feel dizzy or weird or anything like that. But I've had no other sugars today. So that's key, right? So ketones also on a ketogenic diet, so whether that's carnivore or strict keto, when you're producing ketones, that's actually anti-inflammatory, which is why a lot of people that go on a keto diet find they have less pain, probably have a lot less other symptoms as well, such as the vertigo, because it's really all inflammation related, right? So the other thing I can do is a low histamine diet, and I'm going to follow that roughly, because I realized the other thing I was doing was, because I was working so much, a lot of leftovers. I started having a lot of leftovers, and the minute you have leftovers in your fridge, the histamines grow the longer it sits there. When we first got here, everything was fresh. We would buy pretty much every day and consume that day and start again the next day. And then once I got used to what I could buy at the supermarket and things like that, I got organized, as I do. I'm a very organized person. So I was cooking up batches of meat, putting it in the fridge. Now I'm putting it straight in the freezer because that stops the histamine from growing in the meat and that sort of thing. So now nothing left over goes in the fridge. It goes in the freezer. So I'm doing that. And I'm also just watching the high histamine items. And if I can choose a lower one, I will. So instead of the pawpaw, which is a high histamine fruit, I've swapped to pomelos, which are, I'll put pictures up on the screen. They're like a large grapefruit. They're huge, but they're sweeter, kind of more like an orange than they are like a grapefruit. These are low in histamines. So I'm going to sort of swap a few things and just see how I travel along and try and follow a roughly low histamine diet. But the main thing that I'm going to concentrate on is kicking that sugar habit. Let me know if you're with me, that's another journey you've got to take as well, and see if it's the sugar that's making the difference with the vertigo. Because if I think back to the last time I had it, I was high plant-based at that time. I was cooking all the raw treats. I'm a very good cook. I was a cook. I was an ex-cook. So there's nothing that I can't figure out when it comes to food. And when I think back, I would have been eating a very high fructose, high sugary diet, because all of those ingredients when it comes to plant-based eating can be quite high in sugar, even though it seems natural. For me, let's preface it by saying, for me, because as soon as I started eating carnivore, mostly carnivore, things changed so dramatically for me. So it's about figuring out your own diet, right? But I think for me, the biggest key here for the histamine response is to keep my blood sugar really steady. Don't keep leftovers in the fridge. Cook from scratch. And when I say that, I was starting to cook up sliced onions ready to just put into a stir fry and that sort of thing, which sit in the fridge for days on end because they can. So it's things like that. Whereas when we first got here, I would literally cut an onion in half and just cook that, and then there would be no leftovers. So I'm going back to that now and cooking fresh at each meal. So that's going to be my main way forward for this, because when things like this happen, you've got to kind of figure out your first step forward. And for me, that's it. Not to eat leftovers and keep my blood sugar steady. I like to keep things super simple and look at things from a big picture perspective and go, okay, what can I do? Clearly my sugar's out of control again anyway, so even if that doesn't make a difference, that won't hurt me to reel that in. And the leftover component, I need to start eating fresh foods again at each meal and not eat the leftovers. So they're the two ways forward that I'm doing. I'm going to keep the Mercilon as my vertigo medication. I am not doing the antihistamines. That's gone. And that's the way I'm going to go. Dehydration is another thing, and I'm notoriously bad at drinking water, so I'm trying really bad. So I've got my water here with my electrolytes in it, my sodium electrolytes. There's a link down in the description if you want a good electrolyte. That's the one I have, so I'm getting really good at that. And do you know what? I was going without my electrolytes most days for a while there, so I'm going to say, because we average a good 10,000 steps a day at least here, and it's getting warmer. It's starting to go into summer here. Then probably going without the electrolytes contributed a little bit as well. It's always a perfect storm. That's why you've got to do the puzzles and try and work things out and look at the big picture. So bottom line for me, reel in the sugars, drink more water, and low histamine diet, so no leftovers. So that's what I'm doing. I will keep you posted. I will come back and let you know how I get on and whether or not I've managed to get rid of the vertigo and also get more structure in my life. Because from a metaphysical perspective, vertigo on the right-hand side, which is what was happening, is about the structure in your life. And my structure was out the window since we got here. So I'm trying to put the structure back in right now with all the work that I'm doing and adhering to it. So there's always more than just the physical food things that we do. There's also the emotional, the stress, the mindset things that we need to do. That's what I believe anyway. If you've got vertigo, let me know if any of this has resonated with you and if there's anything you think you can do from what I've shared with you moving forward. And if you like my channel, please like and subscribe, and that way we can get this out to more people who might have vertigo and might be feeling really lost and overwhelmed and confused about the situation, especially those women that have no idea they've got lipedema, right?